Not my.
Just don't go
not my
nowhere.
problem.
Lillian, we're here, she's 12 minutes late. Good, all right. We'll call this Jamestown City Council work session to order for Monday, August 2nd. The clerk, please call the roll.
Sheldon.
Here.
Brackman.
Here.
Karuba.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Eklund.
Here.
Graham Reinhardt.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
President Dole.
Here, thank you. At this time, if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak. Go ahead.
I'll go first.
What's the point?
I'll pass this to all the way down to Grant and
Make
then
sure
you
you
two.
give your name and address for the record.
That'll stop at you. She has one.
I've got one.
And then,
Make sure you give your name.
oh, Melissa Paternity, 346 Faulkner Street, Jamestown. Just give one to you. And two to you. Thank you. And one, here, I do have one for them.
I gave him.
Oh,
I gave
is that
him.
for me?
Okay, great, thank you.
okay, what I've passed out to you is a, wait, I need my phone. Is a proposal from the city of Louisiana for a neighborhood liaison. It is a very interesting read. In the proposal, I would like to ask the city council to look this over and chat about some ideas that you may have. I've already proposed it to the finance committee and they're gonna take a look at it. My proposal would be that this neighborhood liaison would work directly with residents of the city of Jamestown and or businesses. They would be a combined effort between the city and the council. This position would be a gateway to get the neighborhoods back where we need them. The saying, we need to come up with smaller solutions. Going big and going home isn't working anymore. We need to break things down. We need to work together. This job would be a part-time job, and it would be no benefits, but the benefits would be helping the neighborhoods. I won't get any details of what the hours would be or anything, because that would be something that would be up for discussion through the council. But my suggestion would be to have 2 people per ward that would work directly with the residents and come to the council, come to the city. The job would be under the mayor, not the DOD, because the DOD would be the other side. There's about 5,000 people per ward. That means that someone would be in charge of about 2,500 people. I think that a part-time position could do this with 2 people. It'd basically be like you'd have a full-time employee. I think that with the money that the city's receiving, I think that it would be a good jumpstart to get back the economic growth that we need here in the city of Jamestown. Because the economic growth starts in the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, we received this and, we'll look it over. We had a brief discussion about the plan. I know this is how they do it in New Orleans. Just a proposal, give it a look and, we can discuss it as part of our plan moving forward. You haven't seen it yet.
No, I just got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a peek at it.
And Crystal as well, so up for discussion.
And I did ask Ryan, Missy sent some numbers she had put together. I did ask Ryan to take a look at those and put that together as well for the finance committees as well.
Great. What would the financial impact be? Okay, anybody else?
I'm Doug Champ, live at 225 Bowen Street. It's interesting, tonight my daughter asked me, "You're going to city council again tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, because I've got something is different than what I normally do. I want to present something that I think affects all of us in a very important way and will continue even more. This document, or text, will be available to the press tomorrow. I want all of the citizens of Jamestown to read this. And they can choose to do with it what they want. Advocates, those who are not, the city council can decide on this or not. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to be here as a citizen and inform you of what is going to happen. The COVID Delta variant replicates much faster than COVID-19. This variant of the COVID virus becomes detectable 4 days after exposure compared to with an average of 6 days in people contracting the original strain per the CDC. Vaccinated individuals also are testing positive and some develop symptoms, but the vast majority are still protected from severe illness and death from COVID-19 per the CDC. Any virus that appears as COVID and its variant strain now are here. They are not going to go away. The COVID-19 virus and its variations will be in the human circulation circle of viral pathogens forever. On the last day of July, Saturday, the 31st, Florida, now the epicenter of the Delta variant, reported 21,683 new COVID-19 Delta variant cases, the single highest daily COVID case count since the pandemic began 18 months ago. The 7-day moving count, they call them moving counts, restored to 15,817, a more than 750% increase since July 1st. This is reported by the CDC and the Miami Herald today. This Monday, August 2nd, Chautauqua County COVID dashboard, for those who look at it, indicated that only 46% of all county residents have received one dose of the COVID vaccine, while only 43% of all county residents have been fully vaccinated with both doses. I believe the city of Jamestown will parallel those percentages. These are my conclusions. During the past month, the COVID pandemic has roared back to life, now with astonishing speed and frightening virulence, crushing hopes for any quick end to this pandemic, and presenting new challenges to all public health officials. New infections and hospital admissions are skyrocketing nationwide, driven by this highly contagious Delta variant. Relatively low state-by-state vaccination coverage and the active resumption of social activities. At the same time, new evidence strongly suggests that even vaccinated individuals can catch and spread the virus. As these, while our public health officials are struggling to persuade more Americans and those who want to become Americans to get vaccinated. These are my recommendations. The city of Jamestown must immediately commit and launch a COVID-19 Delta variant mitigation and protection plan with and through its awarded federal rescue funding. By using a relatively small portion of the already received $14 million rescue funding to mount a citywide virus action plan to rouse the significance of the human virus impacts of not being vaccinated. By using our existing healthcare system and public health officials, both local, county, and state, to initiate without hesitation this local outreach effort. Possible applications. I know eligibility on my form mentioned, or to be mentioned, suggestions and their application to approve a challenge with the Delta variant on the fast track to Jamestown and Chautauqua County. We cannot waste time on this effort. If you say no to my suggestions, more citizens will indeed suffer the consequences. My suggestions: 1, launch a virus mitigation and containment plan in the next 30 to 60 days. Award a $100 per non-vaccinated gift card for all non-alcoholic purchases to a local pharmacy or grocery store for every city-confirmed resident of Jamestown who are age and health eligible for the vaccine and prove they got it. Offer a $200 gift card for every non-alcoholic purchase to a local pharmacy or grocery store to every household eligible resident, owner or renter that can prove they have a fully vaccinated status for them and all eligible household residents. This effort will help to vaccinate and to assist most everyone in our city to buy food, health products, and our personal protection equipment and supplies pending the forthcoming virus surge. For what is the real basis and cause for Jamestown in receiving this federal rescue funding of $28 million in the first place? I believe, and it's verifiable by the regulations and federal treasury eligibility guidelines, that public safety, citizen recovery, and protection are #1 on the list. We must contain and actively stop this coming virus spread. If not, our community health, individual health, and household family impacts will result in more citizen illness and potential of more lives lost. Economic development choices. These are within the prelude to the rescue plan that, by the way, I say the mayor did a wonderful job, and his team and the community development people in presenting this to the city, and I believe it should serve as a model example of presenting programs to the public in the future. So with that said, economic development choices, housing rehabilitation, neighborhood enhancement, new public facilities, and entertainment ventures should and must be considered as second place finishers. In respect to this pending virus fight and its containment, if we do not invest in a City of Jamestown virus mitigation containment plan, an unknown number of our citizens in average age and station of life will never see or reap the sustainable benefits of any of this $28 million of City of Jamestown rescue plan and all of its pretended outcomes. So I ask, what are you prepared to do? I know you don't want to answer that question, but I think you should. Because there is something coming this way, and it's dark, it's malicious, and it's going to hit this community. We cannot think that we are going to go without it containing itself and presenting itself to our population. 46% in the county, probably less in the city, have been vaccinated. They can choose not to be. When I went overseas in the military, I got vaccinated 18 times to go to third world countries. And then when I got there, I saw what happened to the poor children who couldn't get a vaccine. They died. So, people don't want to get vaccinated, they suffer the consequences. Just most recently, Miami profiled an example of a husband and wife team, non-vaccinated. They got the variant. They were in the hospital. The wife died in 4 days. He's going to die. He'll never see his wife, and he's going to leave because he wasn't vaccinated. You can't vaccinate somebody when they got the virus. It doesn't work that way. That's the most important thing in this community, that this rescue plan has to be involved with. Everything else can come after that. Because we would have never gotten this money if it wasn't for the unfortunateness of the COVID. That's that topic. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. I have one more thing. Please give me this time. The noise ordinance. I've got involved in writing ordinance a long time ago. I looked at the noise ordinance that you're going to look at tonight. There's a lot of issues in there of enforceability that are not being done now. I would ask our chief, do you have the instrumentation to measure 55 decibels at a certain distance to actually enforce the noise ordinance?
We do not have a decibel meter.
You can't enforce this legally. You can't enforce what you want because they don't have the equipment. We have breath analysis, we have speed limits, we have lights, but they don't have the equipment to enforce your own noise ordinance. And if you look at the ordinance too, you got to get on a jail-free card when you go to parks and you have a public licensed or agreed event. But these parks are surrounded by residences. So you're telling the people that, no, too bad for you, we're having this event. But then you can't enforce it unless our great police department enforces it by audio. That's through their ear. They listen, and it's too loud. But it's not going to be enforceable, not in a court of law. And no one probably has ever challenged it, but they could. And all the motorcycles are jerry-rigged. Harleys and others are supposed to come out of the factories at a 55 decibel ceiling, but they're all jacked. That's why you're hearing it. They're all jacked up. So whoever inspects them allows that to continue, or they do it manipulated after they got their inspection. So until we enforce the fact that impound these machines that are violating the state ordinance on decibel control, we're not going to have any results or success. So all I say in this noise ordinance, when you read it through again, you've gotta give our officers the equipment so they can legally enforce the noise ordinance. Because if you don't have the instruments, you can't enforce. Thank you.
For the record, I think the building inspector does have that equipment, I know the police don't. They have checked other things.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our standing committees, finance, Councilwoman Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. President. We only had two resolutions, and as we mentioned, the discussion with Melissa Paternitti about the proposal of the position. First resolution is authorizing Captain Robert Samuelson to attend the annual Field Intelligence Officer Regional Coordinator Conference held November 1st through November 3rd in Cooperstown with expenses paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. That was approved. Second resolution was authorizing Officer Kyle Sorensen to attend the New York State Police Underwater Recovery Team's Fall In-Service Training to be held in Alexandria Bay, New York, September 27th through October 1st, 2021, with expenses paid by the Jamestown Police Department pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York, and that was approved as well. That was it out of finance.
Any questions? Now, we'll move on to housing, Councilwoman Ruba.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had no resolutions, however, we did continue our discussion of the prior meeting concerning eviction and utility shut-off moratoriums, which have ended. We are encouraging individuals. There are a number of programs available through not only the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has guidelines not only for renters, but for homeowners, people with mortgage issues. Due to COVID, that there are a number of programs available to assist individuals in either getting actual financial aid or working out a payment plan with their either mortgage holders or with their landlords, how to assist in trying to repay or get loans or get actual grants if they've been impacted by COVID to help with those situations. The Board of Public Utilities here has been working with individuals. They have a program. You have to certify that you were impacted by COVID to work out a payment plan with them. The issue will be for those individuals who think that it's all going to go away. It isn't, and they will have to repay what they owe in some fashion or get assistance to pay back what they can't pay. And that's why, again, refer them back to the programs that are available to help, and there are a number of them out there through the Department of Development has information. I know Chautauqua Opportunities has a number of navigators available to help people with that issue. At my office at Southwestern Independent Living Center, we've been helping and referring people for assistance if they need help with applications, how to complete them. But just want to know that if you do nothing, the problem is not going to go away. You will probably find yourself evicted when housing court gets rid of the backlog, or you will find yourself with utility shut-offs, which will make your apartment or home uninhabitable. So I would encourage anyone with a financial difficulty to do something now and not to wait. Because again, it will be first come, first served. When the resources are depleted, there won't be funds available, so it would behoove you to get going now. The only other item Councilman Brackman brought up were a couple of homes, one on Prospect and one on the corner of Washington and 7th that have had fires, and the condition of the current state of the homes, that they're not completely boarded. And I know the Department of Development is trying to work with the landlords or homeowners of the properties to try to work with them to make sure that they're secured, but they are creating issues within the neighborhood, and I know sometimes it takes a while, but if there's any more information that could be provided in securing those two homes, it would be much appreciated, as there are people going in and out of one home, and it's marked enter at your own risk, and it is condemned, but that does not prevent people from going in if there's an easy way to get in or out. And the other one, I guess there is a considerable amount of odor coming from the home, and it's affecting the neighbors in that area. And so anything that can be done to mitigate those problems right now would be greatly appreciated. And that was it.
Councilmember Krupa, if you could just follow up with me after this meeting on, just get those addresses.
Sure, no problem.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to public safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a note, there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, August 10th at 4 p.m. In the City Council chambers regarding proposed local law number 1 of 2021. It's a local law regarding amending the city charter to effectuate a change in reimbursement rates for sidewalk repairs from $1 to $3 per square foot. We did have the same two resolutions finance had, authorizing Captain Samuelson to attend the annual Field Intelligence Officer Regional Coordinating Conference, and Officer Kyle Sorensen to attend the New York State Police Underwater Recovery Team's Fall and Service Training. We did have a discussion, no vote was held on this, the city's pre-employment drug screening policy. Due to the recent legalization of marijuana, the city will now be using a drug screening panel that does not include marijuana screening for all employees other than those who all hold a CDL, a commercial driver's license. There are federal requirements under DOT for CDLs, so any employee with a CDL will still be subject to marijuana screening. The remainder of the city's drug and alcohol policy will remain in effect, and city employees will not be permitted to work when under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Further discussion, is the council as a whole on this policy? Seeing none. We have two block parties. One is on Crown Street on August 7th from 6 to 10 p.m. And the second one is Fairfield Avenue on August 14th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. This apparently is their second block party of the year because they had so much fun the first time. So they're having another one. We did approve a special event permit for the Get Back to the Reg block party to be held on September 11th from 2 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. on 3rd Street from Spring Street to Pine Street. They also had a block party last week, so they're having another one. That was approved. And we did have quite a lengthy discussion about the Los Contra-County's Car Club special event. We held Saturday, September 18th, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Franklin Park. There were a number of concerns raised after a similar event was held in Dunkirk earlier this summer about the noise levels there. The city clerk and the parks director, Dan Stone, had met with Mr. Sanchez, the president, who attended our meeting today, as well as another member of the club. There is going to be a test event of cars with these very loud speakers next week sometime. We haven't had that scheduled yet, but it will be coming up soon, so we can kind of see how loud it actually is going to be. And there was also an agreement that there was a need for police officers to be at the event the entire length of time and paid for it by the club. This was not in the original application, but the president of the club agreed to that. Councilman Russell, would you like to add anything at this point?
I brought up a concern, there's gonna be a period of time where cars are gonna be able to just freely play their music. He provided us a list of, I guess, rules that people have to abide by, but there is this period of time after 11 a.m. where cars are gonna be able to play their music, and then an actual competition starts, I believe, at 2 or 2:30, and goes on from there. I did voice my concerns about this freestyling of music after 11 a.m. Up until the competition. I personally would like to see that not take place. I get it if you're gonna have the competition at like 2:30 on, 2 cars competing at a time, but I guess I'm concerned about other competitions, non-sanctioned competitions going on up until 2:30 of people just freely playing their music. Mr. Stone did provide a map of the park and explain to us where things would be laid out. The cars and the music are going to be back towards the park, on the back side of the park. I still have concerns over the music. I'm thinking about the people over on like State Street, even on the back side of Bergman, outside the city of Jamestown. We all have constituents all in that area, and I think the idea of the event is wonderful and bringing people in from outside. But my biggest concern is the noise in this. The gentleman did tell us that some of these stereo systems cost in upwards of $50,000 to $100,000. So you're going to hear systems up there that are going to make the systems around town here look pretty weak. So I have a lot of concerns about the noise. I guess they are planning on going around and talking to some of the neighbors and knocking on doors prior to all this and introducing themselves and explaining what's going to go on. I also shared that I called the chief of police in Dunkirk a couple weeks ago. Took it upon myself to do that because I wanted to get his take on things up in Dunkirk. I left my information with his secretary. He failed to get back to me. I recommended, on the application, there was no discussion of police officers at all. Being there, I recommended that on other events, downtown or, there's organizations that would have to ask, or that would ask for police officers to be there, and then they would pay the salaries of those officers to be at those events. So I brought that up, and they're gonna talk to the chief about doing that. He was in agreement with that. He really couldn't tell us how many people or how many cars are going to be there. It could be 1,000, it could be 3,000. He has people that are talking about coming from as far away as Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania. So we really don't know how many people are gonna be there. That makes me nervous as well. I recommended, or I asked him, did he think about maybe having a cutoff? You're only gonna have, so many people, there's an application process, you apply, and there's only so many people allowed, and that's it. But the way it stands now, to me, honestly, it sounds like it's free for all, and it's whoever shows up that day, and we could be in the thousands. And I'm just concerned that it could get out of hand, and there could be issues. I mean, because you can say I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna make sure people are doing what they need to do, but that's not so easy to do when you're talking about thousands and thousands of people there. So I have a lot of concerns about this event with the noise and the sheer number of potential people that are going to be there.
If there are that many people there, it's no different than the Labor Day Festival. We always have law enforcement there, covering that as well, so.
The example I gave was the Gus Macker. I mean, the Resource Center would reach out and say, we would like 4 police officers, and we'll pay the hourly wage and send us the bill, and we'll take care of it. And that's what I brought up this evening, and he seemed to be okay with that.
Well, I can tell you that for the World Series this coming few weeks, we hire officers full-time down there. So it's not uncommon practice for a private organization to hire law enforcement to cover security.
Because the concern that I believe that I read about with the chief of Dunkirk was, he made it sound like it got so out of hand that he would not even send his officers there to field complaints or send them in there because he felt that it would be dangerous for them, basically, because they would be outnumbered if there was an issue. I mean, if you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people that are there, and you know, you send a couple police officers over, you know, you could be putting, them in danger of a situation like that if something happened. So I have a lot of concerns about this. I think it's a great idea. I love to see people come into the area. Obviously, they're gonna spend money. They could be staying downtown in hotels. I mean, they could be eating at restaurants. I mean, I understand all of that. I think that's a great thing. But I'm worried about the control of this and the noise for the people on Baker Street and the people behind the park and State Street and, you know, over in the Purcell area.
Is there when they filled out the application, did they not put in the number of people they estimated would be there?
They don't know. He does not.
I guess my question would be that any other event,
He
There should
kept
be-
telling us about 1,000, but it could be more.
don't they have to register? Shouldn't the cars have to register? Or should
They
there
can
be?
register up until 2 PM the day of the
I was
event.
gonna say, the way the World Series of Wheels is, they can, people with cars are reluctant to bring them out on terrible weather.
So they're waiting
And
for
they
that.
won't register prior because they don't know what the weather's going to be. So you have to open registration that day of the event. Now, we have never had that many cars at the World Series of Wheels.
I'm just saying, that just seems like we have no control. There should be a cap on it.
I don't think he said there was gonna be 1,000 cars, 1,000 people.
People.
Is what he said.
Right, okay. Well, I didn't get 1,000.
People with their families.
People that look, they make a family event out of it.
But even
so
the
they're
amount
bringing
of
their
cars that come.
Right.
But
There
if you
should
still
be-
have 1,000 cars, you're talking 500 vehicles in some way, shape, or form probably. 2 people are in it, right?
Like, for example, he gave us an example of a club coming up from Pennsylvania, and he said they had roughly 40 cars. But then he said, obviously, it's not just one person to a car, you're gonna have family members show up, friends come with them. So, yes, 40 cars, but out of that 40, you could have 200 people. you know.
My concern lies in the park too. I mean, the availability to park that many vehicles, given this weather we've had in wet fields and everything else, is a little bit concerning anyway. So, you know, where are we gonna put all these vehicles if we get that many? Are they gonna, is there some point where they are going to tell them, no, you can't come in? You know, we can't block Baker Street.
So when is it supposed to be, September something?
September 18th.
So things dry up by then. I tried to get them to understand, and maybe we probably need to revisit this, is really making sure that the people on that side of town are reminded early and often that this is going to be happening. I know they're going to do some knocking on doors and such, but sometimes you tell me and it's 2 weeks away and I might forget. And so, to the extent possible, I don't know who that would be, to make sure we use our media outlets to kind of put a reminder out or something like that, so people can, I mean, it's from 11 to 5, right? So
It says
for
11 to 8.
11
and
to
I was-
8.
The, well, the,
And we had talked about ending it earlier because of that many vehicles leaving the park at that hour, along with the fact, as you said, since that's my word, I get calls about barking dogs, let
Right.
alone the volume that's going to occur with this.
the competitions are supposed to end by 5.
5:30.
Okay, so after that, there will also be music playing, dance competitions, kind of like when we, you know, have things going on up until 9 o'clock for the fireworks for the Labor Day Fest. Now, people leaving with their loud cars, I don't know. Will they rev the engines when they go? I don't know. I just know that the actual competitions that they're supposed to have are supposed to end at 5. So we should not be hearing those loud speakers at that time. You know, having said that, I just want to make sure that people who do live there recognize that if they are able to make alternate plans and they don't want to hear the noise, they should be able to do that if we've given them enough time. But some people may decide not to, and that's their prerogative. But I just wanted to make sure that we did a ample job of making sure that people know what's happening.
Dan, have you met with them for placement of cars, I'm assuming?
Yeah, everything will be left on the roadways going in because the vehicles are lower profile.
Can't go.
So we wouldn't put them on any of the fields. No. The speaker competition and another competition they're talking about having, one would be on the basketball courts and the other one would be on one of the 2 back roads of the park. as Councilman Russell mentioned, so we figured that would kinda at least keep you off of the Baker Street area and more where it's wide open for the sound to carry. On the original application, they had marked about 400 people. I think as the summer's gone on and things have opened up, they've had more people at the competitions they have going on. And that's when Jose had reached back out and said, when I talked to him the last time, it'd be 1,000 people that would be in the park. Not so much 1,000 cars, but 1,000 people.
I would just advise them that if you fill up the roadways, I mean, there's only so many roadways in there, so much parking. What is, you know, you're gonna have to shut it off, because we can't have them in the roads and we can't have them on the fields. So, as long as he's aware of that, I mean, 1,000 people to me, 2 people per vehicle means 500 cars. I'm not sure you can fit 500 cars around that roadway.
Not without using
Some.
the fields.
Right,
so.
right,
No, the other
so,
problem too is there's no parking up there.
right,
I mean, the parking will be,
that would allow no spectators.
so just as you did like for some of the other festivals, really, neighborhoods will be filled with cars around that city view and the side streets
The
around.
original thinking was the same as we set up for the other events, the big events in Bergen Park, where the front field, would be used for parking,
Right.
along as the parking lots that go along the little Babe Ruth field, the Cal Ripken field, and the Danielson field as well. And then still leaving a lane open for people to travel in and out. Show cars would come in the main entrance, and we'd use the what we call the Orr Street entrance as kind of an emergency exit, and then be able to park some other vehicles down there as well, but just not the show cars.
Has the fire department been involved in this at all? I mean, I know with our car show, we have a fire truck just because cars can catch on fire. And, you know, that's a risk, so might wanna be something you also wanna mention to him.
And, you know, this is the first time I think we've done, and Jamestown's done anything like this. I mean, your car show pales in comparison to what I think we're doing.
That's
So
one
that-
show.
That doesn't necessarily mean this is like a done deal for the next 25 years. I think it's
Right.
that we have to take the after event and have the conversation about where do we go from there.
Right.
We can't really, I mean, I know people are gonna make phone calls and we're gonna complain because that's why we're here, you know, people call us, but I think we also need to look at all of the different pieces and parts, and so we do it. We sit as a council, or we have a committee, or what have you, and we talk about what went well, what didn't, how much money we think was made that weekend, what some of the things are we need to consider, and then we decide if we want to continue to sponsor it from that point on. That's what I would say.
I just think it's gonna be a difficult issue. There are a lot of older people that live in that neighborhood, and asking them to vacate their homes for 6 or 8 hours because they can't stay in their home because of the volume, that's gonna be tough. And
Well, that's up to
even if
them.
you, well, it's not up to them if they don't have resources to leave for 6 or 8 hours. You know, I appreciate, as you said, there will be an economic impact, but to the people that live in those houses, that don't have anywhere to go, that don't have family to take them someplace else to get out of there for 6 or 8 hours, it's a lot to ask of people to say, you pay taxes, but you can't stay in your house today because you can't bear the noise.
I brought that up, that there's an older,
There's
there's
a
an,
lot
oh,
of
there's an older
people.
demographic up in that neighborhood, and that's my biggest concern.
And it's not gonna be easy for them, a lot of them don't drive anymore. They don't just get in their car and say, I'm gonna go visit a friend that lives somewhere else for a day. They may not have that option.
Are you meeting with him again, or, I guess?
We're meeting next week, I think,
We're
too, up there.
gonna have a demonstration of the sound.
I'll give us an update.
What I would suggest is maybe like, you know, we have to have an egress and regress for the fire department. If they're not going to be on site, they have to be able to come in, for safety reasons. They can't block the road for that, obviously, Dan's very well aware of that, but I'm not sure, I know what it takes to plan one of these on our level, which is nothing like this,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things that he may not be thinking of because he's never done that before.
Mhm.
So in all fairness, he needs to be aware of those things and be reminded that there's no smoking and drinking in that park, you know, those types of things.
He did give us a list, that he's given to everyone. And number 5 on the list, he is telling everyone that there's no alcohol no smoking and no weapons are permitted. One thing that, just came to mind was, when you brought up the fire department, was, is there gonna be any EMS there if someone has, say, a medical emergency, in the park? Who's going to address that medical emergency?
That is why we always had the fire department, so
Yeah.
that's another offshoot of it, but.
Yeah, he did say he was gonna have his own security there too, so, but I don't know what kind of training that these people
Yeah.
have had.
I would like to know when they're gonna do the testing so that I can be around, because more
Okay.
than likely, I'm gonna be one of the first people to get called
Is the testing gonna be up at the park or?
Yes.
to hear, because I also, maybe if some of the people in that neighborhood can be warned that that's the day they're planning to do it, so they can see, but that, you're talking a car, one car, two cars, five cars?
Well, the competition, the way I guess, is you have two cars, competing against one another. And that starts later in the afternoon, but like I said a few minutes ago, up until that point, it's, cars can just play their music. And plus you're gonna have a DJ there as well, so that's where I had my concern, is this period of freestyling, going on, with all of these cars. I mean, it's one thing to have two cars going head to head, you know, and it's for 20 seconds and then they shut down, but this period of time leading up to that where, you know, they're all going, that's a real concern that I voiced.
Can I ask a question? Would Dunkirk do it again?
Apparently they are.
Okay.
They were gonna have an event at Point Gracia.
He said that they, I know from what I read that they had rescinded any future applications. He told us this evening that has since been changed and there is going to be allowed a couple more shows going on, so
He did allude to the fact that there was some communication problems between the Dunkirk Council and the organizers. There was a wedding going on that weekend, there was graduation party, there were a couple of
Yeah.
other events that kind of were overshadowed by this, and so that was another level of, which, you know, the council wouldn't necessarily know if there's a graduation party going on. It's not something the council would know, but apparently they worked out whatever it is they need to work out, so.
yeah, I was under the impression the council up there they thought it was just a car show and not they didn't realize that it was a stereo competition. And that was kind of where the surprise was, and that's why I reached out to the chief up there, because I wanted to try to get his take on things, pros and cons, and if we do it down here, what could we do differently so it works?
Another phone call might be in order.
Anything else on that? That's all we have for public safety.
All right, is there anything for public works?
There was nothing on the agenda. We had no resolutions. We just had a general discussion, mostly about some of the ideas that came out of the meetings for the American Rescue Plan funds, everything from, you know, playgrounds to community centers. So we were kind of just discussing those things. The ad hoc deer management committee that I chair is planning to meet on Wednesday, August 18th at Allen Park, 7:30. So, more to come on that. But that was it for Public Works.
Okay, that's it, so I guess we're on to mayor's remarks and report.
All right. Thank you, President Dolz. There are just a couple items I have for messages from the mayor, and I do have 3 items for executive session, which I will mention. First and foremost, I just want to let the members of the council know that something new this year that Ryan and his team and Jen and the other folks have been working on are benefit statements to all employees. So we've calculated the total amount of compensation paid to each employee, how much is given on behalf of the city to them, to their retirement, as well as to taxes and other benefits, and how much they have paid in. So employees will receive in the mail a comprehensive benefit statement to break down how their pay is broken down each for the year.
You've never done that?
No, we've never sent it out before, to my knowledge.
I know the school has done that every year. It's part of
Yep.
at the end of the year closeout, they give a benefit package.
So I say that because as council members, you're technically also employees, so you may receive one.
Oh, boy.
But just wanted to give you a heads up as well, and we'll be notifying all the employees that they'll be receiving those in the mail. Again, something new this year, but we wanted to be a little more transparent and allow employees to understand and know how much actually goes into their paycheck, both from the city side and from their own monetary putting money in. We'll also have next week for council, as we do pretty much every year, the listing of total compensation for employees based on employee. So you guys can see that is all public record, what employees make here in the city. And so we'll have a listing for you next work session. The second item that I had for the council, just a high level information for you, may have heard that the Senate is taking up the infrastructure bill that will have a huge impact on cities across the nation. The top line bill, the bill that we've seen so far, really provides investments for roads, bridges, rail, transit, ports, airports, water systems, and broadband. I'm going to just give you a brief high-level overview. This bill does continue to be worked on, but as it stands right now from what we've seen, it is a 5-year spending plan for $550 billion. Roads, bridges, and other major projects will be about $110 billion to repair and replace bridges. Also increase state aid to roads, which will have a direct impact on the city. That funding tends to pass from the state to the city on road repair. Passenger and freight rail, investing about $66 billion to improve the Amtrak network, as well as intercity passenger rail for the Northeast Corridor, as well as other rail crossings and rail opportunities. Safety and Safe Streets programs, $11 billion in investments for highway and pedestrian safety programs. There's approximately $29.2 billion for public transit improvements across the nation, $65 billion for broadband initiatives, $17.3 billion for ports and waterways. Right? I mention that because it's not only ports but waterways. We do have waterways here in the city, so some of that funding could go to help improve those waterways. Airports, $25 billion. That does include money to the former Jamestown airport, which is now managed by Chautauqua County. $55 billion in water infrastructure, which includes the Drinking Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Act that can be used directly towards improving our water and wastewater systems. $73 billion for power and grid. I don't know how much of that's going to go to Texas, Lord knows, but it does include money for grid reliability and resiliency, clean energy technology, critical energy technologies, the use of carbon capture, hydrogen, direct air capture, energy efficiency. I say all of those because Doug Champ is in the room, and includes advanced manufacturing tax credit, all of which are things that the city could potentially tap into. $46 billion in resiliency for cybersecurity to address infrastructure. Many of you may or may not know our grid is very old across New York State, across the country. So having that increased cybersecurity is really important, as well as funding for flood mitigation, wildfire, drought, coastal resiliency, ecosystem restoration, and weatherization. There's also additional funding for low and zero emission school buses and ferries, as well as low carbon and EV vehicles across the nation. So that's where it's at as it stands right now. A lot of the bill is meant to pass from the states to help with either state infrastructure or trickle down into the cities, towns, villages, and whatnot. So more to come. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I know we've been talking about it over and over again. That's kind of what we have so far with an infrastructure bill. Watch that closely because it could have some huge impacts here in the city.
See a train from Buffalo.
We we would also love to see a train from connecting Buffalo to Jamestown to Niagara Falls and to Canada. So those are discussions we've been having for quite some time, and there could be potential funding based on that bill.
And the other impact of that would be that if we did receive some of that money, that would free up some of the other
That is
Right.
correct, yes.
Absolutely.
to use for other projects
Yep.
that we wouldn't have to, because it would be covered under that stuff.
And as President Dolson mentioned, that's why we've been watching this closely to see how much of that funding might come down in other sources, which would free up the opportunity to use that funding in other areas. The last thing I wanted to just mention, follow-up from the American Rescue Plan Act sessions. First and foremost, I want to thank all the council members and staff members that had come out to the listening sessions. We had some really good sessions. Some were much more packed than others, in particular Regina's ward, just to put that out there. But we were very excited to see folks come out, provide really good feedback and comments. We're working with the Community Foundation right now to aggregate all the comments together, to do a high-level overview of what the majority of the themes are that we had heard from the sessions, so that we can start to put together a plan to finalize that and work through that together. Okay. So more to come. I don't have a final draft yet. I know that they were working on it on Friday and over the weekend, so we'll follow up this week.
What's the deadline to begin to like say this is what we're going to do? Is it open, or is it, do we have an internal deadline, or is there a federal deadline, or is there a state deadline?
There is no federal deadline. The first report will be due by the end of August for any action we took on the funds up until July 31st, which is nothing besides
yeah.
receiving them. But we do want to try to get that done as soon as possible. I think a lot of our staff have been targeting hopefully voting by the voting session at the end of August, but it's very flexible, right? We want to make sure that we do this and we do it right. So I can't say that that's actually going to be the target or the deadline.
I would like September.
Yeah, me too. I'm feeling September.
And there's still a lot of comments coming.
Especially because we still don't know what's
Yep.
gonna happen with this bill and things like that, so
Yep.
I think.
Absolutely. You asked for an internal deadline. And
Yeah, and
that's
I just
what we're
wasn't
looking
sure
at, but
what
it's
you were
flexible.
thinking. Okay, yeah, I think I didn't know.
And you didn't give the board to a chance because you didn't have any meetings there.
And we can hold one special if you'd like.
Sure. Anytime.
For executive session, I do have 3 items, 1 personnel related, 1 potential litigation, and 1 matter that it impacts the sale or lease of real property.
No
That's it.
action.
Sorry, no action to be taken, yes.
So do I have a motion to go
So
into
moved.
executive session for personnel, potential litigation, and matter of impact of
So
sale
moved.
of property? So moved by Councilwoman Kruger, seconded by Councilman Blackman. All in favor?
Aye.